Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Ipsy's Forum on Africa, Israel, and Black America. I am your host, Joshua Washington, Executive Director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. In just a few moments, I'll be joined by my co-host and Speakers Bureau Chief, Olga Mishway Washington. We have quite a few things to get into today, but first, want to let you know that obviously, well, we've said this every week, but for those who are new here, that theme song is called "The First 7 Miles," written by Randy Sandoli. You can check it out if you search him on all streaming platforms. He is available. Randy Sandoli. You can go to randysandoli.com as well. If you like that music, you can check him out. Again, he is on all streaming platforms, and his album is called Simka. You can check that out, and also book him for live events. There's that, ladies and gentlemen. We have. You can visit our website. If you're brand new to watching us, you can visit our website at IBSI.org, and you can check us out. You can see what we're all about, check out our content, our videos, our articles, all those things. Also, if you want to know more about us, you can go to our Substack, ibsi.substack.com. You can scan the QR code in front of you and go to Africa Israel Weekly. You'll see us. You'll see our articles. You'll see our podcast episodes. And we have premium content, which you can support us by subscribing, being a monthly premium subscriber. That would be a huge help. Your support means a lot to us. And speaking of support, if you are not already, become a legacy builder with Ipsy, with the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. All you have to do is go to ibsi.org/donate, and you can be a legacy builder, which is someone who gives monthly. A legacy builder is someone who sets up a monthly give. Think of it as like a subscription to Netflix, right? Or think of it as, once a month, us, the Washington family, will go out to eat with the kids. Sometimes we'll go. Sometimes we'll just go to Chick-fil-A. Sometimes we'll sit down and eat somewhere. But think of it as that, right? Think of it as a just a small amount that you're able to do. And if you're able to do more than the small amount, then please feel free. But those legacy builders are really crucial to Ipsy's success, and Ipsy's the strengthening of Ipsy as we continue to move forward. So please become a legacy builder. Also, I want you to visit our merch store. I have a picture here loaded up from our Instagram page. If our producer can put that up, of one of our merchandise. It is our Ipsy journal. These are beautiful looking journals that you can use to document all kinds of stuff if you want to, but it's just amazing. It looks great. It was designed by, who was it designed by? I think it was designed by either Leah or Hannah. And you can get those, check it out. And when you buy those, you're supporting Ipsy, and you get something really nice also. We have mugs, we have water canteens, we have shirts, we have jewelry. What else do we have?
Well, hello.
Hi.
Sorry I'm late. I had to put the kids to sleep. What are you talking about?
Our merchandise.
Merchandise. Yes, that's one of the incredible ways that you can support us at the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I think I heard you talking about journals and swag. I don't think we've got jewelry yet, but jewelry's coming. We have got mugs, we've got water bottles, and we're going to be hopefully stocking up on a lot of things for the fall and winter seasons.
Yes. So please support Ipsy by doing that, donating, become a legacy builder, buying our merchandise, subscribing to our Substack as a premium subscriber. All these things are very crucial to the work that Ipsy does. Also, this Thursday is Ipsy's. We have a live forum just for pastors in the Washington, D.C. area. If you are in the DMV area, and some people might say, what's the DMV area? People who live there know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you're in the DMV area, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia, okay, not the car place that we go to register our vehicles. If you're in the DMV area, we are having a live forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. This is just for our Black American and African pastors who live in the area.
Or who can get to the area.
Or
even if
who
you
can
don't
get
live
there. Exactly. Or who can get there. We have, one of our guest speakers, we're not even we're coming from North Carolina. One of our guest speakers is coming from New York. So yeah, even if you're not close, but you have a way of getting there, register for this conference. It's a day-long conference on September 5th on Thursday. We start at about 9 a.m. and then we go all the way until 3:30 to 4 officially. But we'll be there the day, and it'll really be a time for us to discuss some very important topics as it pertains to pastors and spiritual leaders in this country. The goal is to really empower and inform pastors to give these things to their congregation. So our CEO and founder will be there speaking. Olga will be there speaking. You guys have met him a few times before now. Political activist and former slave Simon Dang, originally from Sudan. He will be there speaking and engaging with the pastors. It's going to be an amazing time. And so again, if you are in the area, if you can get to the area, this Thursday we'll be in DC. For more information, you can register online, but you can also just contact us. So we'll give you a form to fill out just to make sure we have some basic information from you. Good evening, Pastor Matrilla Hall. I see you on there. Shout out to Pastor Matrilla Hall down there in the Atlanta area. It's good to see you, ma'am. So yes, I think that's it for right now as far as announcements, right?
Pretty much. Let's just add to the fact that the forum on Thursday is the kickoff for our Ipsy clergy program that we are formally launching this week, but is going to be going into the fall. We've got some great things around there planned, including a trip to the Holy Land later this year over hopefully a very special holiday that has great significance to the African heritage of Black Africans as well as Black Americans.
Yes. So please stay tuned for that. We're really excited about what's to come. We have a lot of good stuff coming this fall, and we have some good things coming early next year as well, especially during the first couple of months of next year, traveling and doing some special events with really great friends and partners. So stay tuned. All right, everyone. Okay, now let's move on. Let's go to... So we have a few things to talk about here. We're going to get into as much as we can in this hour. First of all, I want to say thank you to those who have been sending their condolences, their kind words of comfort to the Washington family, particularly to my mother, who lost both her brother and her father in these past few weeks. So it's been kind of difficult. I did a little pre-recorded forum thing last week from California. I saw a lot of you tuned in still, and I appreciate that. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Even in the midst of a war, in the midst of all the stuff that's going on in Israel, we have friends in Israel who have reached out to send very, very heartfelt emails to my mother and to my father. One of our partners, one of our friends, they planted a tree in Israel in my grandfather's name. Again, there's a war happening right now, and so we would totally understand if all they got was a hey, condolences, or maybe even nothing. Like, no, you guys are clearly going through some stuff, but they took the time to not just express their support and comfort to us, but to actually go the extra mile and take time out of their day to have a tree planted in Clarence Carter, which is my grandfather, which our grandfather's name. And so I want to say thank you to everyone who's expressed that. It's been a difficult time, but it definitely has been much more. It's just been, you've made it easier. And so we appreciate that. But yeah, now we're back, and we're going to get right into this thing. You have anything to add to that, Olga? You okay? All right. So want to make sure I don't miss any comments here on the side. There we go. Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that. Okay. So, in all the stuff that's going on in the world, we also recognize we're not the only ones who, when we are going through things, we're not the only ones who are going through things. And we obviously at Ipsy, but also us as a family, have still been following what's going on in Israel, what's going on with the war, with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with hostages, all those things. And, we learned a few days ago that 6 bodies were found in Rafah who were murdered execution style. One of them was an American citizen. And then which already, I mean, that's in terms of the political implications of that, that's already huge. But then also the fact that the 6 bodies were found in Rafah, which for those who do remember, that was the hot spot, that was the trend of the week, all eyes on Rafah, and you had activists and slacktivists and keyboard warriors and rappers and I might even start calling out people by name, because it was really disheartening to see how much fervor it seemed that everyone had when they felt like they needed to. Rafah this, Rafah that, Rafah. They didn't even know that Rafah existed until someone told them, say something about Rafah. And what we're finding now is that, first of all, we've already been saying this, that these are the propaganda that goes out against Israel. What we call in the Christian world is it's a lie from the pit of hell, right? It's propaganda straight from Hamas, straight from Iran and Qatar to our college campuses, to our, young artists and celebrities, and that they spread around all over the place. Now we actually can see firsthand that not only was it propaganda, but it was covered, because Hamas did have hostages in Gaza, and they shot them in the head and murdered them execution style. These are the 6 people, as you can see. Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, he is the American. Then you have Eden Yerushalmi, Ori Danino, Carmel Gat, Alexander Lobanov, and Almog Sarui. These are Israelis. They've been tortured all this time, even while all eyes on Rafah thing was going on. These people, imagine literally being physically tortured, and in intense agony and pain, starving, all those types of things, only to find out that there are millions of people worldwide who were protesting your country coming into that country to save you, or into that place to save you, right? So that was going on. It's a little too late now. And to be quite honest, the response even after that has been very underwhelming. There was a letter from President Biden that was ostensibly from him. I mean, it was just a letter. It could have been written by anyone of his staffers or something, that was posted, and that was it. There was no words, no actions, I mean, come on. This is, even if you didn't care about Israel, one of the people who was killed was an American. You had Americans who are hostages right now. You have an American who was murdered. And okay, as the president of the United States of America, even in America's interest, you're not going to do anything about this? You're not even going to try to at least find the American hostages at least? No, nothing. And so our hearts are going out to the families, not only because of the deaths and what the murders, I should say, not deaths, because CNN tried to say, oh, they died. They didn't die. They were murdered, right? So the families who are mourning, not just because their loved ones have been murdered, their sons and daughters were murdered, but also now because there's not even comfort coming from the people that it's supposed to be coming from. And everyone's kind of glossed over it. And there's continued protests against Israel and pogroms against Jews and all those kinds of things. It is a very, very, very crappy situation.
I'll add that going from the back end to the front, there were protests on the streets of Manhattan today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Free Palestine, globalized intifada. And it's just like, America, what have you become? And it's been interesting for me to observe, Joshua, just the American leadership, the administration leadership. Not that America is the savior of the world. I think that it's important to state that. But there needs to be an appreciation and a recognition of the fact that America is the leader currently of the free world, and has positioned itself in deed and in word for many decades. And now, if I may say so respectfully, only in word, pretty much, as a friend of Israel. It's a statement that's been said many a times. The Israel-America relationship is ironclad. This is Olga's opinion. I think that ironcladness is a little bit non-existent. Like right? It's further down the what's the word? The strength test. So to watch how the American leadership, political leadership, has responded to this has been very disheartening. At one point, I was like, wow, this kind of feels as if it was how America cared about its people that were left behind in Afghanistan a couple of years ago. Like, who cares? And one of the things that I was looking forward to when I became an American citizen was this sense of wherever you go in the world, America's going to take care of you. I remember when I was in Cameroon just a few weeks ago, and I know that I'm going to share a little bit about there. We went to the Israeli embassy because there was some work that we had to do there, and stepping in that embassy, it was like, this is home, right? You know, and anyway, so to see the administration's response has been very, very disheartening. We do need to also recognize the fact that the United States of America has had several opportunities to provide support to Israel in order for Israel to finish the job and to finish it quickly, to get these hostages out and to position Israel in a place where it does not ever need to be attacked like it has been on October 7 and even in years gone by. It was the United States of America, various leaders, including President Biden, including Vice President Kamala Harris, and we're not making this a political thing, but we are stating the facts here, that warned Israel and said, don't go into Rafah. So as part of this all eyes on Rafah foolishness that we had going on, to use your point, I think you said slacktivists and social justice warriors on the keyboard, we also had an administration that instead of providing the support was saying, don't go there. So now it's like, okay, our people were there, Israelis were there, Americans were there, and most probably are still there, like you mentioned, that we still have Americans that are in hostage. And 24 to 48 hours, the reports tell us that before the IDF got to these hostages to free them, Hamas was like, boom, 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 execution style. And so the pain that these particular families must be feeling, whether you're Israeli or Jew or you're somebody that just has been watching what has been unfolding in the last several months, we are sadly going very quickly towards the first anniversary of the October 7 atrocities, is just heartbreaking. And the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel has posted about it, and we continue to express our condolences to all of the families. America and many other individuals, you know, America's a country, and then various world leaders have got blood on their hands for what happened over the weekend as well as in weeks gone by.
Absolutely. So again, our hearts go out to all of you. It is not an easy time now. And you can feel it. I mean, you can definitely feel it. It was, I think, the day. So I was just in California last week. I think the day before when my time in LA is when all this stuff happened.
On Saturday.
It was on Saturday. It happened on Saturday.
Yeah, we woke up I went to sleep on Saturday night and reports were coming out of this. Yes. So Sunday morning Israel time.
Sunday morning Israel time. So Saturday. So it was just a couple days before. Yeah. Okay. A couple days before. And just talking with a lot of people in LA. A lot of our Jewish friends came out to the concert, and someone actually even gifted me with this coin. It's called Aimon. It's a old like what you would use for a payphone, you know, in Israel. And so it actually helps me to stabilize bring them home tag that we have here. It keeps it from flipping back and forth. And it was heavy. I mean, it was heavy. We were, you know, we had a good time together and all that stuff, but there was also, there's this sorrow that kind of just exists in every aspect of life, really. So even the choice to go out and listen to music or just have a good time with your friends or whatever, there's something that's just sitting there, you know, knowing that there are still children, there are still people who are missing, and also knowing and feeling like more can be done. But like you were saying, Olga, there's the international community, the US, like tying Israel's hands in certain ways so that they can't do what any other country would do. The one of the videos that keeps going viral, that continues to go viral, is the Patriotic Alliance past president, Gayton McKenzie. And he was at a debate and he was talking about, he gave an example. He said, if I was president of South Africa and Lesotho did the same thing that Hamas did and took people and he said, I would bomb Lesotho and I would get the back done. But that's what any country, you invade a country's sovereign borders and kidnap their citizens, they have the right to blow you to smithereens. That is just, when you do that, you're sending a message saying, I want to fight you. That's what you're saying. You're saying, I'm like Thor said, You're ready for a higher form of war. That's what you're saying. You're saying, let's go to war. I have the technology to break into your country, take your people, murder other people. Let's go. No other country will be expected to have restraint for that. No other country will be expected to, try to be as careful as possible. No, 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 no. That's your fault. You put your citizens in danger when you decided we're going to break into this country and steal them. So every citizen that dies on your side of the border is your fault, not theirs. It's not their job to protect your people. Yet Israel's expected to try and protect every single person, including citizens in enemy territory, and that's not how war works, guys. It's not a game. It's not Shoots and Ladders. It's not Clue. It's not Candyland. It's a game where people die, and anyone who engages in that are saying, "I'm ready for my people to die because whatever I'm doing is worth it." Okay, then we're fighting, and your people are going to die, and so are you. That's just how it's going to go. And the fact that even saying that makes people squirm sometimes, that's the programming that's been happening in your brain, because that's how countries respond to this type of attack for millennia, since the beginning of humanity. What happened when Jacob's sons, his daughter was raped by those people, right? What did his sons do? His sons said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to kill them. It wasn't even should we. Right?
Yeah, they were responding. I mean, it's an act of war.
It's an act of war.
What you're describing is an act of war.
It's an act of war. You raped our sister. Okay, well, guess what? So they said, they tricked them. Well, you know what? Want you guys, if you want to marry her, every one of you has to get circumcised. And while they agreed to it, while they were recovering from their circumcision, because they were fully grown men who had cut their foreskins off, then the brothers came in and killed them all while they were weak. That's what happens. You raped my sister. I'm taking you all out. And anyone who's standing next to you. I mean, that's everyone. That type of strength shown is always applauded by other. You see it in movies. You see it on whatever. Yay, we're rooting for the guy who had his wife stolen from. We're rooting for the guy who had his kids taken. We're rooting for the mom who's now fighting to get her children back. But for some reason, it doesn't apply to Israel. It's sick. It's a sick mentality that even some in the pro-Israel space have. We can't succumb to that type of double standard. No, Israel has the right to do everything they're doing. And you know what? The casualty count we already talked about is propaganda. But even if it was true, it's still a war that was not started by Israel. That's even if the numbers were exactly what they are, it is a war, and that's what happens in war. Period.
You know, there's frameworks within which wars are fought, and
Right.
Israel has, more so in this war, because that's where the focus at the moment is, kept within the framework of how do you respond, how do you behave, how do you act. Just as you were talking, Josh, I'm on Instagram scrolling through Colonel Richard Kemp's Instagram feed. I might not find it in time, but he, together with several other generals and people that have been involved in wars before, wrote a piece or they made a submission. I'm sorry, I didn't look it up before the session. I didn't think we were going to go there, but I want to highlight the fact that here are seasoned veterans, leaders and veterans who have penned something stating that Israel is conducting this war in a moral fashion, and all of these accusations, be it from the ICC, the ICJ, about what Israel is doing and disproportionality, blah, 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 that's all foolishness, that's all nonsense. Factually, it's not true. So even in its response to the fact that its people were massacred and its people were stolen from them and continue to be held in captivity, Israel is still providing an appropriate response.
Absolutely. No, totally. I see a comment that says Jacob didn't like what they did. Yeah, Jacob didn't like what they did. But I remember that I pulled up the last phrase in that story was they told him basically what they asked him a question. What should we have done? Do we just let our sister, so she's just raped and that's it? And yeah, I mean, that's one of those stories where you can side with it, but I side with the brothers. I'm like, look, this is what you get. I mean, what did you think? How did you think this was going to go down? How did you think this was going to happen? So you rape someone, and then you realize you fell in love with her, you want to marry her. I was like, I'm sorry, buddy. I can't overlook that. And again, that is the art, the war, the art of war. You come into my country and do that, you're being taken out. That just is what it is. So go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I wanted to pivot a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Go ahead.
Yesterday afternoon, yesterday mid-afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
the family went to the south end of Charlotte, and we were just walking around. We happened to bump into Gogo and some of the aunties as well. But our son challenged us, if we're to be honest. Ezra, he's a very sensitive boy, and I think he knew that something had happened. So our sons know about Israel. We teach them, we pray with them because it's important. It's core to who we are in
Mm-hmm.
terms of our identity,
Mm-hmm.
particularly as Christians, but also as human beings. And we have, or he's made it his own. I think it's what, a 2-foot flag, Israeli
Yeah,
flag.
it's a pretty sizable Israeli flag. Yeah.
So he was holding it the whole day, waving it around the house. Fine, no problem. We leave the house. He wants to take it into the car. Fine, no problem. We get there and he just won't let it go. And initially we said, no, keep it inside. One, because it's a stick and we don't want him to hurt people. But then second of all, you're like, we're in public,
Yeah.
and is there going to be some idiot that's going to hurt him? Never mind us. I mean,
Right.
we have got no problem, and we oftentimes do wear visible support for Israel and for the Jewish people. And we're like, okay, here's this 4-year-old young man. And so we told him, no, leave the flag inside the car. And he was upset. He was so upset that we had to turn back and go get the flag. And then he was comforted for the rest of the afternoon. And so the challenge for us was we need to enable our young people, our friends, encourage them, obviously be aware of your surroundings because there are some mad folk out there. But the Jewish people are hurting. Israelis are hurting. And for us to, in some small way, oftentimes, Josh, I'll hear people say, but you've got a platform and we don't have a platform and there's nothing that we can do, although we really want to do something. Pick up a phone, call a Jewish friend and just be like, how are you doing? Oftentimes people don't understand the connection that Jews in the diaspora have to Israel. That is their home. Those are their people. And even if you maybe don't know somebody specifically, feel free to send us a message and we'll happily disseminate it to people that we know personally, or on your social media. Just put out a statement there and say, as a Christian or as an American or as wherever you may be following, as a Zionist, know that I love you and that I'm standing with you and that I'm praying for you. These are small acts of kindness that mean so much to them in a world that has turned their backs on them, that is deafeningly silent. And so I just wanted to share that as an encouragement, both and a challenge to us to continue to do it, but also to anybody that's hearing, to say that there is an absence of empathy, kindness, just extending warmth to Israelis and the Jewish people, that we encourage anybody who has any morsel of humanity to please take the time to do.
That's good. And I would even say, and this is probably a more general statement, but it's just, as you're saying that, like a commentary on our societies, that I think part of the reason for the lack of empathy is because we associate signs of empathy and sympathy with a social media post, right? So, and some people have bigger platforms. Our platform is growing and all that stuff. And that's true. But that's just an aspect, right? And you don't have to. Posting on social media isn't the only way. And thank you, Pastor Mitchell Hall said, your workplace is a platform. Your Facebook page is a platform. Sometimes people confuse platform popularity. Absolutely.
Amen.
So you can make a post. You have a small amount of followers. Hey, you have 100 followers. They'll see it. You can make gestures that you don't necessarily have to post on social media. Right after October 7th, I have a friend she's not Jewish. I have a friend who lives in Hawaii. She reached out because we go way back, and she was asking me questions. Hey, you know some stuff about this. I've seen your post for years. And so we were talking, and at some point she said, because she knew that there was a Chabad house in Hawaii where she is, and she said, do you know, she was asking me questions basically of like, how appropriate is it to like visit and bring cookies? Because she was crying. She was like, I want to do something. I just want to, as someone who's not Jewish, I want to do something physical to show these people who I've never met before that like my heart goes out to them and I'm with them and all that stuff. And she did. And, those type of gestures, she never posted about it. She didn't make a video of herself doing it, but it was still felt. It's still recorded in heaven. God still sees that. And it's just as important. So again, the social media is a platform, but there's still life, like real
Mm-hmm.
human
Mm-hmm.
interaction
Mm-hmm.
that only the person who receives it really gets to see, and the people that they choose to tell. And that's fine. That's amazing. And so, like you said, Olga, doing those things really is really goes a long way to your Jewish brothers and sisters. All right. Well, wow, it's already 8:32. So let's go ahead, and we have a commercial break for you real quick. We're going to show a recap of this past Sunday's Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. Check it out right now, and we'll be right back.
Those of you in the Washington, D.C. area, in the DMV area, we will be in your area this Thursday, September the 5th. This is particularly for African American and African pastors or lay church leaders. We are doing, it's going to be a little continental breakfast that's served in the lunch. We just a little blurb. Ipsy, in partnership with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Shout out to our good friend out there, Yael Eckstein. We are coming together with IFCJ for a live forum in DC. Is an exclusive event for Black American and African pastors in the DC area. Go to ibsi.org/dates. All right. So you can go to ibsi.org/dates on there. Let me finish reading this. Exclusive event for the pastors there. Speakers will include Ipsy staff and other very special guests, including Simon Dang, who is a former Sudanese slave. He lives now in New York. The topics will include a biblical foundation, what the Word of God says about Israel and the Jewish people, the politics of Israel and the United States, the real issue of Palestinian human rights, the war of Islamic terrorism against Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and also Vision 2050. Most of the world's Christians will be issue as well. Space is limited, I didn't say that part. We really don't want any more than about 25 participants. And the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, because it's an extended kind of workshop format, as you heard some of the topics that we're going to be discussing, but it won't just be speakers. We're going to be having roundtables, panels, everything. We are going to do deep dives into these issues where Israel is concerned, both biblically, geopolitically, the Black American community. We're going to be talking about anti-Semitism. We're going to be talking about how these alliances are truly formed. I'm sure we're going to be getting to Black Lives Matter. We're going to be getting into the past in terms of how it brought it here, what the PLO's strategy was for the Black community back then, how it continues to play out now, what we need to be doing, the South African apartheid thing. This is why we'll be talking about African and American, Black American pastors. Because our goal is to do this live forum in the DC area this Thursday, September the 5th. But then also replicate this in different parts of the country. Shout out to our brothers and sisters out there in Milwaukee. We want to do it there. We want to do it in LA. We want to do it in Florida. We want to do it in Texas. We're going to be doing these types of live forums on Israel, Africa, and Black America, specifically engaging Black American and African pastors and other lay church leaders as well in this forum so that we can have the type of conversation and build the type of constituency that needs to be built, where we're dealing with sometimes very, very difficult issues, but unpacking it because it's way past time.
Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington.
Was there a laugh at
Yeah, there's a laugh. So that was Truth to Power Live with Dumisani Washington. Those are our kids you hear at the end of that promo. Every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, our CEO and founder will be live talking about a whole host of issues, which you definitely want to be a part of. He was just in LA a few days ago as well with Dennis Prager on his radio show. And so if you listen to Dennis Prager, you can check that out and hear that segment with our CEO as well. Okay, so now I'm going to hand this off to my lovely co-host to talk about her trip. So I think I told you guys last week she was in Cameroon. She had just gotten back from Cameroon last week when I was telling you. And Olga has, she'll tell you about this event that she was a part of and all the incredible things that happened and what it looks like moving forward. So Olga, the floor is yours, ma'am.
I'm so sorry that I missed several weeks of this wonderful forum. But like Joshua says, I had the blessing of going and attending the first consultation, regional consultation on Africa in the rise of global anti-Semitism. I was representing the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, as well as Daisy International. And on a personal level, as well as a professional level, it was one of the most impactful, if not the most impactful conferences that I have attended. Two things that I would like to speak to, because there's a lot, Joshua, so I don't want to hog all the time, but we have known as the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel that the work that we do is not only important for the now, it's important for the future. In relation to Africa-Israel relations, because of the Africa-Israel relationship from antiquity, but also if we look at modern movements, social movements, political movements, and Israel has been at the forefront and standing with Africans as well as with African Americans here in the United States. And so knowing this and then going back to Cameroon, to the continent, and obviously having done a lot of work on the continent as well, it was so encouraging to see a few things. And one of them was the fact that this conference was organized and facilitated by the Presbyterian Church of Cameroon. Now, for anybody that knows the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America, this was significant. And it was so significant that in my opening remarks, I said to everybody that was in attendance that this is not only a situation of Africa in the light of global anti-Semitism, but the fact that Africa is a light in global anti-Semitism. I'll say it again, there's a slight difference there. It wasn't just about Africa in the light, like what is Africa's role? What is Africa supposed to be doing? Thank you very much. As there's this increase, this terrible increase in anti-Semitism, matching and in some instances even increasing levels that we saw in the 1930s. But Africa is a light, and it is a light that is presenting a haven for the Jewish people. And I'll expand on that a little bit just now. But it is also a light in terms of leading the charge of combating anti-Semitism and showcasing the love for Israel and Jewish people, as we are supposed to do if we're Christians according to scripture, and then if we're Africans because it's part of our DNA. It's just who we are. And so in the United States of America, the Presbyterian Church is one of the leading institutions that is being an anti-Semitic tool. The Presbyterian Church in the United States of America at the forefront of the BDS movement. The anti-Semitic church in America is turning Christians away, is turning Americans away from Israel, as well as the Jewish people. But in Africa, it's the opposite. In Africa, the very same church, just on a different continent with different people who, if I may say so respectfully, are applying scripture properly and using their minds. They aren't idiots, to say, no, we are supposed to be standing up. So that was very, very striking for me. And then the second part is the fact that I've been to many incredible conferences here in the United States, as well as in various other parts, and I have also had the opportunity to participate in those. And I have not been to a conference where 25% of the time that was spent by everybody was spent in breakout sessions, not engaging on the topic and saying, oh, what does this mean? Oh, how are we going to address this, blah, blah, but actually coming up with solid step-by-step resolutions about what were the attendees going to do when they go back home. And I looked at that and I was like, my gosh, I was so encouraged by it. And I was also challenged at the same time to say that this wasn't a place, and it was the first meeting of its kind in the area. Many of those people that came and that participated had known about the fact that they need to stand in support with Israel and a little bit about why and how, but never really understood it. In fact, Joshua, I was asked to unpack what is anti-Semitism because they had differing understandings. So here you have a people who within hours, a day and a half, low-hanging fruit, got it. We're like, we still want to learn more, but we understand the basic tenets of what we are supposed to do, and we're going to discuss it and unpack it, set milestones, have practical components to those milestones, whether it's in terms of the impact that needs to be there. There was already KPIs that were put there. They didn't leave out the young people. There were young people that were in attendance that also had their own sessions and that also passed their own resolution. And they're going to be working towards that for purposes of doing something and then culminating in the next conference, which is going to be next year in Tanzania. Now, part of the earlier remarks that I made mention of is the fact that not only do we have here the Presbyterian Church of Cameroon leading this charge, but that Africa was a light because of the haven to the Jewish people. And I mean it because of this. that if you study and you look at the statistics of how anti-Semitism has risen over the last couple of years or last several years, that even though there is an increase in Africa, it is incomparable to the increases that we see across the West. Incomparable. In fact, even a country, South Africa, my country, whose government took Israel to the ICJ, and we have spoken about this many times, that action was not representative of what the normal, ordinary South African felt. And many people question that. They said, okay, but what do you mean? And we've expounded on that. That even in South Africa, a report by the Jewish community that was published in July 4 of 2024. The headline is SA Bucks the Global Trend of Anti-Semitism, and I'm going to read a little bit from it. In spite of an alarming global increase in anti-Semitism, South Africa appears to have settled since the initial stages of the war on Gaza, which resulted in a dramatic and concerning rise in incidences. Now, why am I highlighting South Africa? Not only because of the ICJ case, but South Africa is the only country where if you are looking up on anti-Semitism that's really happening, that's like egregious, it's only South Africa. One, because South Africa's got the largest Jewish community, but also that's really where, if you're going to find it, then that's where it'll be. So it's important to look at what South Africa is saying. I continue the article. Although the situation here in South Africa is far from ideal, it contrasts with the disturbing cases of anti-Semitism, often violent, that continue to surface daily in many parts of the world. According to David Sachs, who is an associate director of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, he says, since March, things have stabilized to the point that we can say that we're back to normal. So people being concerned and say, yeah, but South Africa's anti-Semitic, it was a spike based on people that were being used as pawns and as puppets because of what Iran was doing, using South Africa, and South Africa, unfortunately, availing herself to be used as puppets for this lawfare at the ICJ. The last point, and then I'll wrap this up. David continues to say, this after reaching unprecedented highs, all right, which were still incomparable to the rest of other nations. The number of incidents of direct anti-Semitism has been more or less the same as in previous years. Reports also state that things are less serious, generally just being in the form of verbal insults. Now, I don't say just being, because that's still terrible, but we're not looking at protests, ridiculous protests like we're seeing in Manhattan. We're not looking at screaming, globalizing intifada. We're not seeing the vandalizing. We're not seeing the ramming of individuals just because they're Jewish and killing people that they are Jewish. So here is Africa that provides, just as she has done so many times in history, whether you're looking at Jeremiah, who was saved out of the pit by an African, whether you're looking as a Christian, Jesus, who was a Jew, right, was saved by Africa when King Herod had the proclamation that all of the babies that needed to be born, and various other examples of how Africa has been a haven for Jewish people. And so I say this in closing, that the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel is very, very excited to be able to continue the work that has been done in Cameroon and as part of the Presbyterian Church there. There's also a conference that's going to be happening in Ethiopia and various other places, that even as the world is mourning, rightfully so, and has their head in their hand, understandably so, because of what's going on in the West, we are excited that there is a place that is low-hanging fruit, that loves Israel, that stands with Israel, that supports Israel, and that is on the incredible continent of Africa.
So, Olga, thank you for sharing that with us. Is there do you know when you'll be going back? Like, have they talked about that in Cameroon, like another event happening, or are they taking it from here? Meaning, because you were saying there's a lot of action items already being discussed. What's the general feeling now?
So the first thing is that the main individual that was organizing this, he's going to be coming to the United States in November.
Okay.
So we're going to be having practical to-dos with him. Following that, we obviously have our Ipsy clergy tour that's going to Israel also in November. We're going to be having individuals from that particular consultation that were there. I extended a personal invitation on behalf of our CEO to the Right Reverend of the Presbyterian Church of Cameroon, and he graciously accepted it, as well as several other individuals who are from Nigeria that were present there. So in the audience, Joshua, we had heads of churches. It wasn't just people that didn't have a following, that didn't have influence. We had heads of churches. We also had women who were involved in different components of the Presbyterian Church, including 2 women who head up 2,000 women in their particular areas. So we've got, like I mentioned, he's coming in November, and then we've got the Ipsy tour. And then we are going to, God willing, resources becoming available, because that is a challenge wherever we go. Resources, resources, resources. Again, if I may make this plug, that if you are excited about the work of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, or even if you don't fully understand it, but you are wanting to see education going out, if you're wanting to see allies standing up for Israel and the Jewish people, if you're wanting to see lobbying and real engagement, shifting the tide in a real way, in areas of politics, in areas of policies, in areas of, I already mentioned education, but also education in the home, right? Families getting those engaged, as well as churches. I can go on and on and on. The Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel would appreciate your financial support in order to make this happen. We are about getting the job done, and our leadership is being looked to in a big way by various organizations in Africa. So resources being available, God willing. I mentioned that there's a conference in Ethiopia that we're hoping to get to before the end of the year, which will also be a further step in this. But Josh, in my head, have already got several ideas that even if we don't get to touch the continent before the end of this year, we're going to be doing.
Absolutely. So you guys, you've already heard it. You've heard it from Olga just now, and I will say it again. Ipsy, the demand for Ipsy has grown. I think our CEO just sent out an email today, an email blast about exactly that. The need for Ipsy has grown exponentially just in the past couple of years, even before October 7th. During the war of 2021, actually, is when things started to really explode even more. And we've been able to do a lot with a little. And that's mainly because I think 100% of our staff, or 95% of our staff, we're all part of the same family. So you have myself, I'm the executive director. The CEO is my father. Our COO is my mother, her father, mother-in-law. Our speakers bureau chief is my wife. Our graphics design artist is our sister, your sister-in-law, my sister. The person who films all of our videos for our content is our other sister. The producer behind the scenes of the forum is our other sister. Some of the articles that are written for Ipsy is our other sister. I mean, and so we've been able to, when we need to, come together and do what we need to do with the resources that we have.
Can I be more blunt?
Yeah.
And what he means by that this is not a let's get wealthy by using this particular cause. No, the Washingtons are not. It's not a good strategy. We don't recommend it for anybody. We are volunteers. There are stipends that, as and when resources are available, that go out and that are given. But this is done on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
There have been moments where we have been unable to respond to requests for help, for information, especially when those asks are, we see something needs to be done and we want to be proactive about it. We're not just about, oh my gosh, let's now react. Yes, sometimes we are unable to predict certain things and we're being reactive, but we're about moving forward and really changing things in a proactive way.
Yeah.
But sadly, we've been unable to respond to that because we just haven't had the means and the resources to do it. And so, yes, Joshua says, and then I'll throw it back to you. I just wanted to make it very clear that this is not a family get rich making scheme. Like, it's the family involved because we just don't have the resources to be able to pull in other individuals. And, family that understands the mission and the mandate is willing to do it at no charge. But no charge doesn't have the lights on. No charge doesn't provide the Wi-Fi through which many of you are listening and hopefully being blessed and inspired. No charge doesn't enable our CEO to get on a plane and have access and be a speaker on somebody like Dennis Prager's conference. No charge doesn't enable me to be able to get to Cameroon and to be able to encourage, right, people who have this feeling that they need to do something but they don't know. And I had so many messages of, wow, thank you, we had no idea, now we feel encouraged, now we feel inspired, we never, right? So So yes, we would appreciate your response, your financial response, not just a thank you, which we are so grateful for, but that if that thank you could also be accompanied by anything that you can contribute, it'll ensure that the work of Ipsy is able to continue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be a part of something new. You all be a part of something new. There's Ipsy has always, and really it's attributed to our founder and CEO. Very much the kind of person, and we've talked about this with both of our fathers and our mothers, in that they're the kind of people who do things that need to be done. They don't look at how many people are doing them first. They don't hop on trends. They tend to start trends, right? When my parents homeschooled us, to homeschool in California, to be Black in homeschool in California, that wasn't a thing in the 90s, not really. So they were called all kinds of names. They were called all kinds of things. Now there's this this is nationwide rise in homeschooling. There has been for the past decade now amongst Black and other families and minority families as well. Yeah, I'm not saying that my parents single-handedly started the nationwide movement. What I'm saying is they were a part of that small group of families that said, you know what, I think this is a better avenue for our children. And that is the same mindset that started Ipsy from our CEO, was that he saw this Africa-Israel thing. Olga was just sharing about the Presbyterian Church. You all know, some of you are aware that here in America, it was back in the early 2000s, the Presbyterian Church edited the Bible so that whenever it said Israel, they would replace that word with the church, and I don't know what kind of Bible they're reading. My Bible says that if anyone edits the word of God like that, that woe be unto them, because God will deal with them harshly. So I'm looking at the Presbyterian Church saying, you guys are literally changing the words. I'm not talking about translating. I'm talking about, we're just going to change this word and call it something else. So the Presbyterian Church here in America has become deeply, not just anti-Semitic, but just deeply adverse to the word of God.
Yeah.
How are you a church and be
gospel,
adverse to the
right,
word of
yeah.
God?
Yeah.
And the gospel, right? So to hear that the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, right, the Presbyterian Church in Africa is completely on the opposite. It also explains why we heard a stat from our CEO that there are American denominations that are requesting and reaching out to bishops in Africa to be their bishop, because they don't like the direction their church has gone. Methodist denomination, there's some churches in the Methodist denomination, some churches, the Presbyterian, who are looking at all this anti-biblical stuff and saying, you know what, these pastors in Africa really know the word of God and they're holding true to it. Can you please be our spiritual covering? Can you please be our bishop? So Ipsy's been aware of this and has had her finger on this for a while. And what Olga was just doing in Cameroon, it's the tip of the spear. We're really at the beginning, or I should say the tip of the iceberg. We're really just at the beginning of this, but Ipsy is right at the beginning of this emergence spiritually of Africa, and emergence even politically, and all those things. There's a lot of movement taking place when it comes to Africa, and we really feel like we are in the right place at the right time. So if you also want to be at the right place at the right time, again, IBSI.org/donate, or you can become a legacy builder, but know that your donation is going to the right places. Like Olga already mentioned, for us to be able to travel and do these things, for us to have these forums, for us to have these events like the one we're having in Thursday in DC. We already have interest from our partners at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews of replicating this pastor's event all across the country. We haven't even had this event yet. And they're saying, no, so we're going to meet there and plan out next year and how we can bring pastors together in a certain area and have these deep discussions so that they can be properly equipped and empowered to share with their congregations. This is a huge deal. And so, again, we would appreciate your donations, you being a legacy builder right now, even as you're watching. We greatly appreciate it and know that it is going to an amazing cause, and that we won't stop.
Let me say there's one last thing.
Yeah,
I think it was, what are we at, 2024? Was it 2022 that we had the Juneteenth?
Yes,
Was it 2022? Okay, so 2 years ago we had a fundraiser over Juneteenth, and it wasn't a fund. We had something.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that we were engaging with was, what does Ipsy want to look like after a couple of years? We do acknowledge the fact that some people, many people, individuals, organizations are fatigued, right, by giving and giving and saying, okay, but nothing seems to be changing. Is this really worth it? And you made the comment, Joshua, that we will not be the same organization in 5, 6, 7 years' time. We will have evolved because we would have already done the work that we've sought to do now, which is strengthening African and
Yep.
Jewish relationships, and rather African and Israel relationships, and then Black America and Jewish relations. And that if we are doing the exact same work in 5, 6, 7 years' time than we're doing now, we failed. And
Yep.
that is a promise that we have for everybody that comes on board as a partner, because we are in this to change the game. We understand to the very core of our being in terms of what God has mandated us to do, what we need to be doing, why things need to be changed. When our sons are old enough to also come on board, put their hand to the plow, they should not be having and will not be having the same conversations that Joshua and I are having with you, whether it's on this platform or when we have the opportunity to speak to others.
Yes.
It would have involved to not just, like I say, be strengthening, but reinforcing or doing brand new things, innovative things that nobody's been able to do because the relationship is already intact. God willing.
Absolutely. And yeah, and just to emphasize lastly, it is, the demand has increased. So it's already there.
Yeah.
We, every event has become, okay, how can we piece this together? And we're going to DC right now. And there's a couple of things that we can only do tomorrow because we're like, okay, well, this donation came in. So as soon as it posts, we can do this and that. And that's kind of been what we've been doing since 2013. But we'd very much like to be able to thrive in this new season. So ibsi.org/donate. And we would very appreciate you being a legacy builder. We appreciate it so much. Thank you, guys. And also, just to remind you, so yes, this Thursday, please join us Thursday if you are in DC or in the DMV area, or if you are not and would like to be, or you can be. This Thursday, we will be in Washington, D.C. for our live forum on Africa, Israel, and Black America. This is specifically for pastors in the area. So Black American and African pastors who are able to come out. It says 10 to 3. Breakfast is actually about 9. So we'd encourage you to show up at 9 if you want to eat with us. But yes, everything will officially start at about 10 o'clock. Please come out, have these discussions with us, meet some incredible speakers. We have, like I said, political activist and former slave from Sudan, Simon Deng, who's going to speak. Our CEO is going to speak. Olga's going to be there speaking. And we're going to be having these back and forth discussions with you all. So we would very much look forward to seeing you there on Thursday. And also stay tuned for our future events. We have a lot of great. Olga mentioned a couple of things. Actually, it's my first time hearing about Ethiopia. I'm excited about that. But we have some other great news coming out as well in the coming months. So thank you so much. You guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place, 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, Mondays. Tell your friends about it. And we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week.
All right. Good night, everyone. If you haven't subscribe to all of our social media channels, platforms, as well as our Africa Israel Weekly Substack. Good night.
Good night, y'all.